So a couple of weeks ago, we had a look at this Lucifer 150 speaker here. Well, we looked at the IRs, which they gave away for free, which is pretty awesome. And we're going to do exactly the same today, but instead I have the Solor Guitar's Chug pedal. And we're going to use that as a preamp to see how it works with this. And what I thought would be cool was the Solor Guitar's Chug pedal also offered some free IRs too, which they felt were best to pair with it. So let's just try them all out. So firstly, I have a pre-done track like I did last time, with straight clean guitars. So if I play them now, they sound like this. Boring, bland, and just meh. But really good for a sound engineering perspective, because now I've got a really good foundation to go with. So now if I turn on the pedal just as it is, it should sound a bit like ours, because we don't have the cabinets engaged yet. So for anyone playing along at home, that's what it can sound like when you don't have speakers and that's just the sound coming out of your amp. But what we've got here is, so I've got the Solor guitar one there at the top, and the other one here are the Lucifer, and like a reference point they gave us. So let's start off with the reference point, go through them, and see how they sound, see how they go, and just have a bit of a chat about it. See if I need to change any settings of this, because I haven't touched it since I last used it. If I remember correctly though, I had a fucking killer sound before, so in theory I shouldn't need to touch it. We'll find out. So firstly, our vintage 30 with the SM57 speaker, just as a pure reference. Now I've got a bit of hiss coming through there because I'm running this hot. It does have a gate. If I push that too much, it might take away a little bit of the bite. So I'll leave it in for now and we'll see. All right, so I've got a good reference stuck in our head now for that, because let's go through all of them. So we'll do their reference point they did. Yeah, I like how those notes really pop out there with that riff. I think I did have the gate pushed up just a little bit too much, so I turned it down a tad, because it did cut out a couple of those earlier notes there. That's all a part of the fun, is figuring this all out. So let's go to the in-between and see how that sounds. Once again, I like how those notes are accented there. That sounds pretty rad. Let's go to their sweet spot now. I think the in-between makes those notes pop a little bit better. Yeah, a lot better. That's all right. Well, I feel it's better. I don't know if it's one of those things where it's very, it comes down to pure taste. What do you want out of your riff? What do you want accented? What do you want actually heard? And what do you want broken through the mix? What do you want blended into the mix? How do you want to represent what you're playing? Or, depending on how you do it, if you do it the opposite way where you're playing to this, not from this, what do you want out of your sound to get the characteristics that you need as a player? So let's try the Solor Guitars Chug IR that they offered when I bought this pedal, which, mind you, is a very cool addition when you do buy a preamp pedal. Yeah, so hopefully a lot of other companies start doing that too, because that is very cool. That nearly had that big gent love bite to it. It was really, really close with those accented notes there, which I'm sure if we did a little bit of EQing, we can find it and emphasize and push it. But just using what they have given us, yeah, let's go over all the differences between them. So firstly, the straight vintage 30 as a reference point. So if we just go here, for example. And then go to their sweet spot for the Lucifer. And then go to the, let's go my favorite one so far with this, which has been the in-between out of the Lucifer ones. And the Solor guitars. So straight off the bat, from what I'm hearing, my initial thoughts, and I'll probably change my opinion a bit when I listen back, when I do the editing. That's okay, that's all part of the fun. Firstly, the vintage 30, the reference foundation, for lack of a better term, is definitely the most fuzzy. And vintage 30 speakers kind of give that. That's what I've got in my cabinet down there. And its biggest fault that I feel that I have with, not biggest fault, it's not a fault, its biggest characteristics that I don't like the most out of it is it's too fuzzy. Where the Lucifer seems a lot sharper and a lot rawer and a little bit more grindier, which I really love. Where the Solor is just a lot more bottom dynamic to it. A lot more bottom dynamic. So yeah, very, very interesting. But let's put it in a band mix. So I'll mix these down, bounce them down a bit, because at the moment, I'm just going off the playback here. And then we'll add some bass, some drums. I'll do a few different versions with all different ones, and I'll mark them. And then, yeah, then we can have a real better overall picture of how they would react in an actual band situation. Now, like any of these, if I went through and once I've found the cab that I wanted, gone back to the pedal and mucked around with it more. It's in the studio, so there's absolutely zero reason why you shouldn't go and do some post EQing as well, and clean up some stuff there as well to make it sound absolutely, prime for what you want to do. But for this video, though, we're keeping it nice and raw because as much as I love doing that stuff, I also want to keep it a little bit more down to earth. So if you're dealing with these type of IRs and this type of equipment, you get pretty much the same sounds that I get. Then you can take it wherever you want from there. Instead of you hearing, my polishing skills that I have, because I'm not going to be able to help myself when I do it in the studio, and nor should I, where I get to a point where I do some post EQing and I add a few more different plugins here and there and different compressions and different EQ bands that react slightly differently to them and clippers and God knows what else to really get it pumping and cleaned up and what I call polished. So that's not a really good representation if you're just like, how does the IR and this pedal sound? That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. So yeah, there's my justification in case anyone thinks, oh, that sounds pretty crap and shit. It's like, well, I just told you why you might think that. Even my polished stuff, you might think that. Doesn't matter. We're all have the right to our own opinions. That's fine. That's fine. But let's get to it. So I'll quickly play these and then we'll have a bit of a chat about it on the other side. So there we have a few different versions of the Chug pedal with some different IRs. So let's have a talk about how they spoke to each other and they're pairing up. So firstly, this is a killer pedal. I do love the power of this that it gives, and I think I might have pushed the gate a little bit too hard here because it did have a little bit of unwanted hiss coming through when there was no signal, as in like no guitars actually playing, because it looks like I have pushed this pretty fucking hard, which is to be expected really. But yeah, I could have pulled back on the gate just a little bit because it did, I noticed on a couple of parts there while listening back, it did just cut out just a little bit too much, but that's nothing against the pedal at all. That's just me being overly cautious when I didn't need to be. That's okay. So out of the three different ones, we had just a standard vintage 30 reference one, which same as I used it with the Gehenna in a previous video, a little bit too fuzzy for my liking. But it's a reference one. That's the speaker that we know the best with metal, and it did its job as a nice reference point. I love the aggressiveness of the Lucifer 150. I use the Sweet Spot IR for it because I felt like they just had a little bit more bite compared to the other ones. So that was the best one to kind of use it as a point of conversation. That was really cool. And the Solor guitars IR that they had, that had a really nice low dynamic to it. I thought originally maybe it was too much low end, but it actually fit in really well with the mix and it didn't clash too much with the drums and bass that I had set up there. So yeah, it'd be cool if I could get a mix of those two maybe actually, like have some of the aggressiveness from the Lucifer and some of the bottom end of the Solor guitars, but then you fall into trouble of maybe each of them slightly out of phase maybe. You need to work on the phase for it. Might be a project worth doing, I don't know. But yeah, they're my initial thoughts on listening to it in an actual band situation. But at the end of the day, they're all fucking awesome. They all sound really, really cool. And just depending on what you want to emphasize and what you want out of your tone, you are correct in which one you prefer. So always remember that. But thank you very much for joining me in this video. That was lots of fun putting it together and mucking around a little bit more on reamping sounds and all that, rather than me just chugging along with my guitar. It's nice to, you know, spice it up a bit and just change it up a bit here and there. I really look forward to hearing what you've got to say about this and in other and future and past videos as well. So until then, please stay safe.